Hi folks, most of you will be aware that we sent a notification to the President of Ireland of flagrant breaches of the law and the Constitution ongoing in our courts, so much so that we're facing the possibility of having to initiate citizens' arrests at the appeal hearing on January the 30th next, scheduled for the Appeals Court in Dublin. Having received a generic response from the President's office that they did actually receive my letter, unfortunately, we've heard nothing further since. And with the date fast approaching, it is incumbent on me to advise the judges of Ireland in this open letter of the situation so that there can be no doubt as to what is in fact going on. An open letter to the judges of Ireland. I write to you today as a law-abiding citizen and a father of 3 children who, because of the improper, illegal and unconstitutional actions of various agents of the state, find myself in the impossible position where, if I am to abide by the law and the Constitution, that I have no alternative but to bring the following grave matters to the direct attention of the Irish judiciary in this public letter. I have, for the past 6 years, engaged truthfully, openly and in good faith with the Irish statutory authorities and the courts in attempting to secure justice for myself and my family in the wake of over 700 incidents of harassment, intimidation, defamation, death threats, physical assaults and more, all of which have either been reported to the Gardaí or have formed the subject matter of civil cases which we have taken through the courts. Yet despite overwhelming evidence in support of the facts and despite having named the perpetrators openly in formal criminal complaints and in sworn affidavits, not a single individual has been prosecuted by the Gardaí or has otherwise been held accountable in the courts. Indeed, all the indicators are that the perpetrators of these crimes are being actively protected from prosecution through the illegal and improper activities of agents of the state, including, we regret to say, by Gardaí, senior civil servants and members of the judiciary. It is not my wish or intention to disrespect our courts, nor to impugn the good name of any member of the judiciary who is carrying out their duties justly, diligently and without fear or favour. But some serious questions have to be asked when a law-abiding citizen is repeatedly thwarted, obstructed and denied justice over a period of several years by the very people entrusted with the administration of the law and the protection of the Constitution. In the experience of myself and a great many other citizens, including scores of Integrity Ireland members, many of whom have already submitted their affidavits to the Minister of Justice, the general perception is that our courts are simply unfit for purpose, unless that purpose is to protect the establishment at all costs, even at the direct expense of truth and justice. Given that our judges are absolutely required to operate according to the law and the Constitution, and have each sworn a solemn oath to adjudicate matters without fear or favour, it is a scandal of alarming proportions that so many of our judges are perceived by the general public as being unpredictable and inconsistent, or as being mere puppets of the political establishment. With all due and sincere respect to the best of our judges, it is unsettling to any right-thinking person that 5 out of 6 judicial appointments, for example, are politically motivated, and that the Judicial Advisory Appointments Board has failed to conduct even one single interview in over 11 years of existence. How is the public supposed to have confidence in a judicial appointment system that is so overtly compromised as to engender astonishment in the eyes of outside observers? And whilst it does not necessarily follow that judges so appointed are not doing an excellent job, only a fool would not entertain the possibility in our Ireland of today that judges so appointed would feel politically and personally inclined to favour those whose patronage delivered them to their lofty positions. In this manner, the insidious tentacles of cronyism, nepotism and political patronage undermine the public's confidence in the essential independence of the judiciary, not to mention other obvious issues of concern such as having no special training for prospective judges, and having no workable mechanism by which erring judges can be effectively curbed, because the current appeal system is so onerous and so open to abuse as to be no effective deterrent to judicial malfeasance, misfeasance or incompetence. And if the common man loses confidence in the judiciary, then arguably the judiciary have lost their moral authority. And without a moral dimension, authority quickly descends into tyranny. The courts are our last refuge, our very last refuge. If they are not solidly rooted in the principles of justice, and if the ordinary citizen cannot rely on fair and expedient treatment, then this is no justice system worthy of the name. All we are asking for is fair treatment, as laid out in the respective legislation. It is all there in black and white. We have an absolute right to be treated with dignity, fairness and respect, especially by those who have been gifted so much power and authority and are being paid from the public purse. Surely it is not too much to ask that our judges honour the principles of justice and treat all men fairly as laid down in our Constitution and in the judge's oath of office. Anyway, to the matter at hand. Although we could quote literally scores of examples of improper conduct by senior court service staff and members of the judiciary as listed on the Integrity Ireland HAFTA database, I will just highlight one particular issue coming up on January the 30th, where a non-national who has a long-standing criminal record in another jurisdiction has, with the apparent direct facilitation and support of a number of court registrars and judges, made an absolute mockery and a farce of the Irish justice system. So much so that we took it upon ourselves to send a circular to the respective court service offices advising that this individual was a criminal who was engaged in serial misrepresentations, deceptions and frauds, including dozens of incidences of blatant perjury and forgery, and other criminal acts which, despite our most strident efforts, are drawing no appropriate responses from the so-called statutory authorities. Clearly, something is very seriously amiss here. In my own case, it seems rather pointless trying to engage with the judicial process in good faith, while so many blatant breaches of the law and the Constitution are allowed to continue. Instead of remedying these flagrant offences when the cases come before them, certain judges have either completely ignored these blatant acts of perjury, fraud, deception, forgery and collusion, or have further compounded matters by issuing oral directions in open court in order to temporarily appease those of us who are present and avoid any uncomfortable developments, and then later they sign off on perfected orders which bear little or no resemblance to the directions given in court. And in one particular example, I have found an order written like this where the registrar has made notes in the column which reflected what the judge said. However, the order given to me states something completely different. When we then seek clarifications or explanations, we are variously ignored, rebuked, or otherwise treated with contempt by certain court service staff who clearly struggle with any proper understanding of the concept of genuine public service. A simple analogy here would be to ask, how would you react if, when you were waiting for a bus, the driver failed to stop, or if he took you to the wrong direction, or even if he mounted the pavement and tried to run you over? Don't you think you would have a right to report that driver? Should he not be sacked for failing to do his job properly? Why then do we continue to put up with the so-called court service, which is anything but? On Friday, January the 30th, an appeal by the aforesaid criminal is scheduled to be brought before the court. This criminal has absolutely no right of audience in these cases, yet several judges and registrars have, it seems, knowingly allowed him to bully and barge his way from hearing to hearing, making an absolute mockery and disgrace of our so-called justice system. In light of our numerous letters and notices to all parties concerned, any person, including any court service staff or member of the judiciary, who facilitates the progression of this utterly illegitimate appeal on January the 30th is clearly and demonstrably complicit in facilitating a criminal who is engaged in a long-standing fraud on the Irish people and the Irish courts. Accordingly, we respectfully ask each of the presidents of the various courts, who are all going to get a full version of this letter, as well as an addendum explaining the details about this criminal and his activities in the courts, to ensure that all judges and court service staff under their jurisdiction are alerted as to the facts of this case, so that further abuses and the resultant costs and embarrassment to our justice system may be avoided. So, I reiterate again, it is not my wish or intention to disrespect our courts or impugn the good names of any of our judges, but the facts are the facts. As a law-abiding citizen, I am respectfully insisting on behalf of myself and all of the members of Integrity Ireland and the greater public at large, that our courts please simply do their jobs right, follow the codes and the principles of justice, adhere to the law and the Constitution, and give us justice, please.